Hey guys, Tom Barclay here, here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium where Spurs have just beaten Villarreal 1-0 in a bit of a scrappy game. I don't think Spurs were at their best, but given that Thomas Frank's been waiting 30 years to coach in the Champions League, I don't think many people will begrudge him this huge slice of luck that came Spurs' way and his way to win this game. So, the main moment of the game came very early on, inside 4 minutes, and it was an absolute horror gaffe, major mistake from the Villarreal goalkeeper, Luis Jr., who comes to try and claim a pretty routine cross from Lucas Bergvall, sort of dives out to it. Richarlison's lurking behind him in the 6 yards box, so no doubt putting him off, and somehow he manages to divert it back into his goal. It was a very, very lucky moment from Spurs' perspective. It was a mega bit of misfortune from Luis Jr.'s perspective, and ended up costing Villarreal the game, giving Spurs the win. And I suppose no one will begrudge him, as I said, Thomas Frank, after all this long wait, given that he started his coaching journey back in 1995, coaching an under-18 in a local team in Denmark. Worked his way through youth football for 18 years, eventually got to Brøndby, but he never actually coached in the Champions League there, despite them being one of the giants of Danish football, and Brentford, as we know, now at Spurs. They were very organised, Tottenham, I would say. And this game, it's funny, I was speaking with Jay Harris of The Athletic before I started the game. He was sort of talking about Roma before this match, had a similar kind of feel to it, similar quality of opposition, and obviously in that game, Spurs kind of chucked it away in the last minute when they conceded to that late Mats Hummels goal. And there was a chance that this could have happened here, but I suppose it maybe speaks to the defensive organisation and solidity that Frank generally has brought to the team already. They held out, and it was enough. They weren't at their best by any stretch, and if anything, a mistake from Luis Jr. looked at the most likely route to a goal today. Obviously it happened for the actual goal, but there was another moment in the second half. Kudus fires in a corner and he makes a complete hash of it, and that almost went in, but it wasn't like Spurs had many other chances throughout the match. Can't really think of many, actually. I mean, there was a nice little free kick routine actually before the goal where Vicario fires it to Van de Ven, who has a touch, lays it back, and Xavi Simons fires it over with a good volley. But apart from that, there wasn't a whole lot. And if anything, Villarreal looked the most dangerous of the sides. Nicolas Pepe in particular, the former Arsenal flop, let's be honest, cost 72 million. He never lived up to it at Arsenal, but he looked really dangerous tonight. And on another day, he would have found the far corner. There was a really important intervention from Van de Ven early on after the goal that Spurs scored, where Pepe almost fired it in the first half. If it wasn't for that intervention, it probably would have snuck in. Had another chance in the second half, and there was some sort of questionable decisions as well, I'd say, from the referee. He sort of upped the ante with some of the decisions he made, some of the yellow cards he gave out early doors, where he suddenly put pressure on himself to keep giving yellows. It's not like any of his yellow cards, in my mind, in isolation, were bad decisions, but he just sort of, once he gave one, the first one I think was to Xavi Simons for not much of a challenge, maybe it was a yellow card, but once you give that one, you start giving them out for a bunch of them, and I think by half time, both sides decided 2 yellow cards, and suddenly you thought, is there going to be a red card here? And it didn't feel like that kind of game, but it was mainly because of the referee and what he'd sort of put on this game by dishing out these early yellow cards, that he added sort of extra pressure. And normally we talk about a team needing to get to half time to sort of reset and regroup, but it felt like the referee here needed to get to half time and regroup. And then weirdly in the second half, maybe to sort of counter the decisions he'd made, I don't know how Xavi Simons sort of escaped not getting a second yellow when he took out Pepe. Not in a sort of malicious challenge, maybe that's what saved him, but definitely, in my mind, a second yellow card. He should have probably been sent off, but luckily he got away with it, and he lived to sort of fight another day, and obviously Spurs carried on from there. There were a couple of penalty shouts in the first half as well for Tottenham that got turned down. I think I could see why Tottenham fans would be unhappy with them not going their way. Both were involving the same defender, Papagay for Villarreal. The first one was him taking out Richarlison. To be honest, Richarlison was massively looking for it. He tried to nip in front of Gay and went down under the contact. There was contact. It could have been a penalty. Maybe he was unlucky, but again, I feel like he was really looking for it, so I don't have that much sympathy, but maybe more surprised that it wasn't given. And then there's a handball situation where the ball bounces up and hits Gay on the hand in the box. His hand's kind of outstretched, but it's not in a natural position. I guess that's why it wasn't given, and VAR backed up the referee on both occasions. So I guess I can see why Spurs fans would be aggrieved, but I don't think they were like major mistakes, not like the goalkeepers today anyway. But that was kind of it from Spurs' perspective. It's a slightly concerning lack of creativity, I would say, but their defensive solidity was something that can be the basis for their success this season. We've already seen it in a lot of games already under Thomas Frank, that organisation that he has brought to the party. There's a little less of the helter-skelter nature that we saw under Ange Postecoglou, meaning that if they're not playing that well, they can fall back on that along with their set pieces. And that was pretty much the sort of story, I think, of the match. There was a debut for Kolo Muani towards the end, coming off the bench. Richarlison, I would say, looked leggy, maybe a bit tired from the international break. He didn't really get much service for most of the game. He was mainly spent it just trying to hold on to the ball, and at times he did that quite well, but he didn't really get into that many attacking positions, although you could argue the goal came about from him causing Luis Jr., the goalkeeper, to be put off by him being in that position. But yeah, I wouldn't say he was outstanding. It was a reminder that I think Richarlison at his best can be a really effective player, but he's never been the most consistent. But at least he's staying fit. That's good. That's good news. Frank's subs made sense. It felt like it really needed. They were losing a bit of the grip on the game in the second half, so it was good to see Palhinha come off the bench, having not started the game, and I think he added a bit of extra bite to the midfield, a bit of defensive rigidity that they needed. Doggy came on. I think it was Spencer's best game, and I'm not sure who I fancy more at left back. They're both really good options, but I think this game was definitely one where Doggy sort of extra, obviously his ability to be natural on the left side, was Spence playing out on his weaker side as well as he does it, was the right thing to do. So credit Frank for making those right calls. But my overall, it was mainly the defensive solidity that got them through this particular game. Van de Ven was pretty solid at the back. Romero was too. Porro was pretty good. Vicario, there was one sort of bit of distribution which I didn't like, which I felt I was saying all last season, and he gave the ball away. I think Kudus again was solid on the right. I just love the way he can hold on to the ball. It's not like he's creating loads of chances, so I do wonder, particularly someone with him in my fantasy football team, how many points he's going to get me. But he's just a really good footballer, really good at holding onto the ball. The way he drops his shoulder and gets past players, you know it's coming, and yet he can still do it, which is very impressive. And he's more composed than I probably thought he would be from what I've seen at West Ham. He's very calm on the ball. I like some of the players that have come in this summer have brought an extra layer of composure. So talked about that with Xavi Simons from his debut at West Ham. There's more of that again today. They don't seem to sort of get frightened or anxious when they're in possession. They want it, if anything. Whereas someone like Brennan Johnson, I wouldn't really say that was his biggest strength. But then again, it felt like they lacked a bit in behind. So maybe this was a game that, how were they chasing it rather than sort of defending a lead? Johnson might have been introduced a bit sooner. But yeah, Kudus again impressing with his composure, his dribbling ability, his power on the ball, his skills. And Xavi Simons had a good start, faded a bit, and like I say, in my mind, pretty lucky not to get sent off. And then Muani came on, but I didn't really see too much of him. There was a moment right at the end when I think he was in injury time, really. I think Kudus probably should have kept hold of the ball, but he tried to slip him Muani, and the ball wasn't quite good enough. But had that been on the money, then he might have been in for his first goal, but it didn't happen. But yeah, overall was a really solid win. A solid 3 points to start off the Champions League campaign in what's probably their second hardest home game on paper. Dortmund, you'd argue, was harder, but obviously Copenhagen and Prague probably looking a bit easier than these fixtures. So to get through a tricky one, bear in mind Villarreal in the Champions League semi-final, I think, against Liverpool only a couple of years ago. They're no mugs. They've got a lot of experience in their manager, Marcelino, clearly organises his team very well. They've got plenty of former Premier League players in the team. Juan Foyth, obviously, an old Spurs player. Thomas Partey came off the bench to, unsurprisingly, a chorus of boos here. Pepe, as I mentioned, who actually was very, very good. Renato Vega. There's a lot of players like that, a lot of nous in the team. And if it weren't for a real sort of schoolboy error from the goalkeeper, they really could have definitely got something out of this. And to be honest, have Villarreal won this game based on the balance of play? I don't think Spurs could have had that many complaints, but they've won. Really good start from a points point of view. Now, if they can up the performance going forward, it gives them a really good basis to get through this group stage, which, given the relatively kind fixtures and the good start they've made here, they've got every chance of achieving. And they'll only learn more from this particular experience, not least Thomas Frank, after given that as experienced manager as he is. This is obviously new territory, new ground for him, coaching in the Champions League. So congratulations to him. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Love to know what you make of it. Obviously at the ground today doing this video. So let me know what you thought, what you were happy with, what you think there needs to be stuff still worked on, and I look forward to seeing your comments in the comments. Cheers, guys.